For over 5 decades, Ozzy Osbourne stood at the heart of heavy metal, a voice that carried across generations, from the earliest chaos to the final reflective ballads. His presence brought power, emotion, and a shadowy beauty few could match. Now, with his passing, we look back on the songs that left a permanent mark. Tracks that still shake speakers, lines that stay with us, moments that turned into milestones. This isn't just a countdown, it's a tribute. 10 songs that will live on, through the fans, the memories, and the music itself. Number 1. Crazy Train. This was the moment the world realized he wasn't done. After parting ways with Black Sabbath, expectations were low, even from the industry itself. But with one explosive single, everything changed. Crazy Train became the anthem of his rebirth, announcing that a solo career wasn't just possible, it was unstoppable. The song came together at Ridge Farm Studios in England during the recording of Blizzard of Oz. One of the most iconic elements, the now legendary opening riff, was created by Randy Rhoads while experimenting with harmonics and alternate scales in rehearsal. The lyrics, surprisingly, were inspired by global tensions and Cold War paranoia. It was a protest song in disguise, dressed in full leather and madness. What most fans don't know is that the laughter heard in the intro wasn't staged. It was captured during a real moment in the studio, a burst of chaotic energy from bassist Bob Daisley, who was cracking up between takes. That detail, left in the final mix, gave the track an eerie, unfiltered edge. Decades later, it still feels like lightning in a bottle. Number 2. Mr. Crowley. Named after the infamous British occultist Aleister Crowley, this track sparked immediate curiosity and controversy. It was never meant to glorify anything sinister, but rather to explore themes of mysticism, obsession, and the unknown. At the time, he was fascinated by the way society feared what it didn't understand, and Crowley represented that fear perfectly. One of the song's most haunting elements, the eerie organ intro, was completely improvised by keyboardist Don Airey. According to interviews, he was told to play something spooky, sat down, and nailed it in one take. That moment became one of the most iconic openings in metal history. While most people remember the song for its theatrical vibe, it also played a huge role in solidifying his solo image. This wasn't just the former Sabbath singer trying to keep up. This was an artist carving out his own mythology. And decades later, the mystique around Mr. Crowley still hasn't faded. Number 3. Mama, I'm Coming Home. This ballad caught many fans off guard, not because it was soft, but because it was so personal. Written as a tribute to his wife and manager Sharon, it was one of the few times he openly reflected on the toll his lifestyle had taken on the people around him.
Time gone by, seems to me you could have been a better friend.
The title was something he used to say to her during long tours, and that simple phrase became the emotional core of the song.
Mama, I'm coming home.
What few people know is that the lyrics were penned by Lemmy Kilmister of Motorhead, a close friend and one of the last people you'd expect to write something so tender. The collaboration worked perfectly. Lemmy brought the raw honesty while Ozzy delivered the feeling.
You drove me out, yeah, you had me hypnotized, yeah.
It was recorded in Los Angeles at A&M Studios during a time when he was beginning to clean up and reevaluate his path.
I could be right, I could be wrong, it hurts all.
The song became one of his biggest radio hits, but it wasn't just the airplay that made it last. It was the truth behind it. Years later, Ozzy would call it one of the most meaningful tracks he ever recorded. Number 4. No More Tears. This track came out during a moment of surprising clarity. At the time, he was battling addiction but beginning to find focus again. And that energy bled into the recording sessions for what would become one of his most ambitious albums. The title song wasn't even originally planned to be that long. As the story goes, the band just kept jamming in the studio until it naturally stretched past 7 minutes. Rather than cut it down, the producers kept the whole take, capturing the raw, unfolding tension. The haunting bass line that kicks it off came from Mike Inez, who wasn't yet a full member of the band. In fact, the line impressed Ozzy so much, he kept it in and later helped Inez land a spot in Alice in Chains, one of the defining bands of the grunge era. The video, shot in a moody warehouse with surreal visuals and shadowy figures, matched the song's creeping atmosphere. It became a staple on MTV and helped push the album to multi-platinum status. More than a hit, No More Tears became a statement, proof that even after years of chaos, he still had full control of his legacy. Number 5. Bark at the Moon. This was his first major release after the loss of Randy Rhoads, and all eyes were on whether he could carry the momentum forward. What fans didn't realize at the time was how much pressure surrounded the making of this track. Behind the scenes, tensions brewed over songwriting credits. While Ozzy was listed as the sole writer, guitarist Jake E. Lee and bassist Bob Daisley later claimed they were deeply involved in crafting the song but were pressured into signing away credit. It was also the first album recorded with Jake E. Lee, who brought a new style and energy to the project, all while navigating a band dynamic still grieving and searching for stability. The recording sessions took place at Ridge Farm Studios in Surrey, and according to those present, the atmosphere was intense. Ozzy was struggling with addiction, and the production schedule was chaotic at best. The iconic music video, released at the peak of MTV's influence, helped catapult the track into visual legend. Ozzy's transformation into a werewolf took hours of prosthetic makeup each day, and the shoot became one of the most elaborate of his career. It wasn't just a comeback. It was a full-on theatrical statement that the Prince of Darkness wasn't going anywhere. Let's pause for a moment. That's 5 songs down, and each one holds a different memory for every fan. Which Ozzy track means the most to you? Drop your favorite in the comments, or share a moment you'll never forget. Number 6. Diary of a Madman. This track closed out his second solo album, but it felt more like the beginning of a deeper mythos. Written during a period of emotional volatility and inner turmoil, it blurred the line between autobiography and fiction. The lyrics tapped into mental instability, isolation, and fame-induced paranoia, themes that mirrored what he was experiencing behind closed doors. The recording process was turbulent. Much of the album's bass and drum parts were laid down by Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake, but both were later replaced in the credits by Rudy Sarzo and Tommy Aldridge due to management disputes. Years of legal battles followed, leaving this song with a complex and sometimes painful legacy for those who originally played on it. The orchestral elements, rare for heavy metal at the time, were recorded at the same Ridge Farm studios and added a haunting layer to the track. Randy Rhoads, already becoming a legend in his own right, pushed the composition into something almost operatic. In hindsight, this song marked a turning point. It wasn't just a metal track, it was a personal exorcism sealed in vinyl. Number 7. Over the Mountain. This was the opener to his second solo album, and it hit like a mission statement. Fast, defiant, and full of fire, the track reminded everyone that the chaos hadn't slowed him down. But behind the pounding pace, the lyrics reflected something deeper. Questions about purpose, belief, and the weight of his own mind, a theme that would quietly run through much of his career. The explosive drum intro was performed by Lee Kerslake, who had laid down the entire rhythm section for the album before being pushed out and replaced in the credits. Legal battles over those sessions would drag on for decades, leaving this track and the album as a whole tangled in unresolved tension. Randy Rhoads had originally sketched out a longer, more intricate version of the song with additional sections, but it was trimmed in the studio for maximum punch. What remained was pure urgency, no filler, just raw momentum, marking the start of what many consider the most intense album of his solo years. Number 8. Shot in the Dark.
Out on the streets, I'm stalking the night. I can hear my...
This track marked a shift, both in sound and in the people behind the scenes. Released in the mid-'80s, it became one of his most commercially successful singles at the time. But few realize it was also the last song he released with bassist and co-writer Phil Susan, who helped shape the track's distinct, polished feel before quietly exiting the lineup shortly after. The song was recorded during sessions for The Ultimate Sin, an album that's often overlooked in his catalog due to later disownment. For years, the album was out of print, and this track was nowhere to be found on digital platforms. Rights disputes, label complications, and internal friction kept it buried for long stretches, despite its chart success and heavy rotation on MTV. There's also mystery around the songwriting credits. Parts of the chorus had originally been demoed years earlier by another band, Wildlife, which Susan was previously involved in. When the track was reworked for Ozzy, those roots were never officially acknowledged, adding another layer to its strange legacy. Even so, the song became a fan favorite and remains one of his strongest radio hits of the decade. Number 9. See You on the Other Side. This one felt different from the start. Released in the mid-'90s, it carried a weight that set it apart. Slower, darker, and introspective. At a time when metal was being overshadowed by grunge, this track didn't chase trends. It stood still and let the emotions speak. Themes of mortality, regret, and farewell gave it a haunting depth that hit longtime fans especially hard. The song was co-written with members of the band Motorhead, including Lemmy Kilmister, who had become one of his closest collaborators and friends. They wrote together often, but this track stood out for its honesty. It didn't roar, it lingered, and in hindsight, it reads almost like a letter to loved ones from someone already half in the next world. The video, filled with shadowy images and slow-motion scenes, reinforced the idea that something was ending. For many fans, this was the track that signaled a new chapter, not a reinvention, but a reckoning. Decades later, its lyrics now feel more prophetic than ever. Number 10. Ordinary Man.
I was unprepared for fame, then everybody.
This song was a goodbye long before anyone knew it. Released in 2020, it was written after a series of health scares and public appearances that hinted at a slowing chapter. But rather than rage or defiance, what came through was vulnerability and a rare willingness to look back with open eyes. Elton John joined him on the track, both vocally and on piano, making this a cross-generational moment of reflection between two legends who had nothing left to prove. Slash and Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses also contributed, turning the session into something closer to a final jam among old friends than a typical studio cut.
Yes, I've been a bad guy, been higher than...
The song was recorded in Los Angeles during a short window where his health allowed him to work. In interviews, he admitted to crying when he first heard the finished version. And now, with his passing, the lyrics feel like a final message. He never wanted to be remembered as untouchable, just as someone who lived, hurt, created, and loved. An ordinary man who left behind anything but an ordinary legacy.